Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and this is my Granny Era. Today I want to give you guys a little bit of biographical information on the American author Nathaniel Hawthorne. I am currently hosting Nathanuary, which is a January reading event where we read something by the author Nathaniel Hawthorne and talk about him a little bit and just sort of appreciate this great American author that I love so much. I just got in the mail this book I have been looking at for a little bit, and so I thought I would open it up here and show you guys. This is a story about Nathaniel Hawthorne and some of his friends. Yeah, so this is called the Concord Quartet. I talked about this last week, I think. And I am really looking forward to reading this. This book talks about the relationship between Bronson Alcott, which is the father of Louisa May, who wrote Little Women, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and Henry David Thoreau. Three of them were transcendentalist philosophers, and then Nathaniel Hawthorne was more on the romanticism side. But all of them were, critical thinkers, and their writings really contributed to American philosophy in the 19th century and even now. So I'm going to add that to my list probably in February. Looking forward to that. For this Nathanuary event this month, our group read is The Scarlet Letter. I did end up finishing that last week, and so I'm going to give it a little more time before I do any kind of a discussion on that, just to give people time to finish up reading it. But I think here in a few days I am going to talk about some of the short stories. But today I just want to focus on biographical information. Now, I first encountered Nathaniel Hawthorne in a class that I took for college online, maybe like 2010-ish, so a good 15 years ago. We were assigned to read this book of short stories by Nathaniel Hawthorne, and as I started going through them, I was just like, these are so interesting, and this subject really sticks with me. I was already familiar with kind of the gist of The Scarlet Letter, but I don't think I had ever read it with any maturity to actually understand what I was reading. I really appreciated his perspective. I loved the subject matter. I just loved everything. And so I still read through that book of short stories on a regular basis. I'm reading through it now. It's just a book that I really enjoy. And as I grow, I understand the stories a little bit more. So Nathaniel Hawthorne was born in Salem, Massachusetts in 1804. His family has a long history there. One of his ancestors presided over the Salem witch trials and was responsible for a lot of gruesome things that happened during that time, which I think Hawthorne really tries to sort of make up for when he's writing his stories that have to do with religious hypocrisy and the sin in people's lives, their morality and things. He really takes the perspective of the average person as opposed to sort of the religious overlords, if you will. He started publishing in his 20s. He worked at the Boston Customs House. He even joined an experimental commune for a short time. In his early 30s, he married his wife, Sophia. They had 3 children. He wrote a few novels, some nonfiction, and lots of short stories. He moved to Europe to serve as the U.S. consul in Liverpool for a while. And then he died in his sleep at age 59 after complaining of a stomach ailment. Sounds kind of like a simple life, right? Didn't make a huge wake, didn't do anything grandly spectacular, yet we are still reading his works today and talking about their importance. What intrigues me about this author? Why did I create Nathanuary, and why am I so obsessed? Okay, he is kind of good looking, you have to admit that, but beyond that, there is more. One of the things that I really love about Nathaniel Hawthorne's writing is the setting in which he writes. He writes about a time and a place that's very interesting to me. A lot of his stories take place during the Puritan times in New England, and just that whole atmosphere, just that atmosphere that he creates. Some of them are gloomy, some of them are just, they're not necessarily dark and depressing as much as they're just not on purpose cheery and warm. For some reason, moody old me really loves that. I appreciate his philosophy. He writes a lot about religious hypocrisy, and myself as a person of faith, but someone who is not really involved with mainstream Christianity anymore, I can really pick out a lot of the themes and see myself in some of his religious hypocrites, as well as just overall mentalities that I've struggled with, having or fighting or just knowing, that they exist, being aware of them. I think it's important to evaluate how the faith community, presents itself to the rest of the world and treats the rest of the world. And he really digs into some things that can be pretty uncomfortable when you've got your eyes sort of turned inward and not necessarily focused outward on those around you and those in need, right? I think he and Charles Dickens probably would have hit it off had they been able to have some social justice conversations. Who knows, maybe they did. And like I said, just that atmosphere that, kind of dark, but always a moral tale there. And that's where you get that romanticism coming in from the 19th century, right? That, and some of them do it better than others, right? Some of them can be kind of sappy and, preachy, but these aren't that way. These ones really make you think. It's really great mood reading. And I appreciate the historical context from which he writes. Through his stories, I have learned a ton about history. He is really good about writing allegorically. So when you figure out who and what he's actually referencing, it does help you understand some elements of American religious and moral philosophy. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, Hawthorne himself was not a transcendentalist, although there were a lot of transcendentalists around him. So if you're not familiar with that term, transcendentalism, it was basically a movement among American writers and thinkers that basically saw humans as inherently good and nature as inherently pure. It says that it is society that corrupts, so the more sort of self-sufficient and free-thinking that one can be, the more independent they can be, the easier it will be for them to sort of go back to that original state of goodness. This might sound familiar to you if you are familiar with the works of Henry David Thoreau. He wrote a lot about self-reliance, self-sufficiency. He wrote from Walden Pond, where he just talked about allowing nature to teach us some things, just kind of some lessons about ourselves, right? I feel like it's kind of like a go with your gut, sort of express your own personal freedom mentality. Now, though Hawthorne did not end up sticking with this mentality throughout his life, he did join a transcendentalist commune in his early years. And things didn't go so well, so he tells the fictional story of that in a book called The Blithedale Romance. It's a novella, it's not very long, and he says that, he's not actually referencing anybody alive at the time, just random, sort of inspired, but people who were familiar with the book as well as the commune that he did live at and the people who were involved in all of that, they see lots of parallels. And so that story has been very much analyzed over time to sort of match up, fictional people with real people and kind of tell the story of what went on there at the little community that he was a part of in his bachelor days. But Hawthorne, like I said, overall was more of a romanticist. So he wrote kind of like moral tales, like warning tales, cautionary tales, right? And we see a lot of that in Victorian literature and then the American equivalent to that. All the bad things that will happen if you are bad, and then all the good things that will happen if you do, repent and redeem yourself. And so stories to sort of freak people out and scare them away from bad behavior. And while many of the stories from that time period that I've read tend to sort of be down on the main character until they, find their state of goodness and purity and repent all their bad ways and get right again. What I have found with Nathaniel Hawthorne is he seems to be on the side of that main character, of that lower person, and he tends to tell his moral cautionary tales to those who would lord it over others, right? So rather than warning like the everyday person, he is warning those who have sort of an influence over the everyday person, governments and religious leaders. And I appreciate that. I think that is one of the reasons why these stories can sort of stand the test of time, right? women these days especially do not want to be preached at, especially by a man, right? And so reading some of these stories that did come from men, telling us how we should be and how we could be more virtuous and la 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 if we were to just follow his 5-step plan, that doesn't go over well with a 21st century audience, men or women, right? But the stories that Hawthorne is telling where, you're sticking it to the government, you're sticking it to the religious hypocrite leader, when you're sticking it to the people who are trying to have authority that, it's far-reaching, overreaching, those resonate with us. And we are like, yeah, you're right, buddy. And I do think that is one of the reasons why they stick around. Nathaniel Hawthorne, especially in his story, The Scarlet Letter, he sees people and he understands, he seems to really understand the heart of people who, maybe they fell down and they're just struggling to get back up again, and they got a bad break, they got a, rough break or whatever, and they just can't seem to get it back right again. He's on their side. He seems to understand them. He seems to be compassionate and an ally, I guess you would say. Unlike the transcendentalist, he comes across, to me anyway, as seeming like he thinks that people are inherently evil, and it was their lot in life to kind of struggle with sin and guilt. That may be just a personal perspective, but I feel like it's valid. He definitely writes, though, on the darker side of romanticism, for sure. And he's super great about pulling out all of those little hypocrisies of man and then scaring you with the consequences thereof. In the majority of his stories, female are strong characters. They are usually the ones who get to be the heroines. You'll see that when you get to The Scarlet Letter, or even other short stories like Roger Malvin's Burial or Young Goodman Brown. The women are the virtuous ones. They're the ones who are also thinking very clearly. You can find a lot of those short stories on Project Gutenberg, maybe even all of them. I haven't gone down the page after page of things listed there by Nathaniel Hawthorne, but you can find a lot of them there at Project Gutenberg, both in a written form. Sometimes you can find them, maybe look on LibriVox to see if you can find audio versions that people have recorded. He's out there all over the place, and there's a lot of them, and they're good stories. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, this little biographical information. If you're interested in joining Nathanuary, it is not too late. You can check out all of the details and our discussion and everything we're doing down in the description box at the Discord link. Just click on my Discord, it will take you to my main, Discord community, and then you'll see an option there for the Nathanuary channel. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.